everyone, and welcome back to The Council. It is your girl, Cosette,
Lexi, and Rachel.
and today we are going to talk about some of the crazy things that go on in our very powerful minds. I know I am the queen of overthinking and specifically hypothetical scenarios.
Oh, yes, she is.
I think that I could be an award-winning director with the situations that come up in my head.
I agree. Even the ones you pose, like not just the ones that you're concocting in your head, the ones you actually transfer to the page and you're like, hey, hypothetical.
If
She-
this
she comes out with a
yeah.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is, I think, both a strength and a weakness because sometimes I really get into dark places when I'm unsure about certain things, or a specific one, or a specific, I guess, like situation or scenario that we are going to be talking about is before a first date. And those hypothetical moments, and before you've actually met up with someone in person, or you're just getting to know someone, and now all of a sudden you're imagining like what your life is going to be like when you have children, and what happens if they go to this country, and like, I don't know, just like, are you girls as chronic overthinkers as I am?
Not in
I
that
don't think
same-
so.
No, not
Yeah.
in that way. I do more self-sabotaging, not like I overthink about myself, I guess, a lot. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Where, okay, am I triggering thoughts for myself from past relationships of like, am I worthy enough? Does he think I'm this? Does he think I'm that? Like, oh my gosh, do I need to do that? Instead of the hypotheticals that you come up with. Like, she is down a different rabbit hole than us. I
I'm
think.
very creative. I think the
is.
first section of this overthinking that I want to talk about is as it pertains to first dates, and when you first, before you meet someone, what all of the like thoughts and the preconceived expectations and notions that you may have in your head that are all building up this intense nervousness and anxiety inducing feeling before meeting that person. So I remember the last first date I went on, I think it was. Oh my gosh, the overthinking I was doing before this was hilarious. I was overthinking like, okay, so this was the scenario.
Yeah,
We were
please
meeting-
walk us through this.
we were
'Cause this was
meeting-
hilarious.
We were meeting at a coffee shop. This coffee shop is about like less than 3/4 of a mile from my house. So I just feel like it's silly to drive. So I'm like, I'm gonna walk. But then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna walk. Who am I? I'm like, I'm gonna walk to the coffee shop and we'll just meet there. And I pick out my outfit and I'm like, oh my god, like, wait, I'm gonna walk to the coffee shop. What if he drives past me as I'm walking to the coffee shop? I'm gonna look so stupid.
She had so much anxiety about
I'm, like, crying.
possibly walking past him driving past her.
And I was like, what if he walks past and he doesn't recognize it's me from behind because he'll probably be driving like, east, and he'll be driving past me, so he'll drive up behind me and he won't know. But what if he's driving the opposite way and he sees me and I look so stupid like walking?
You're
And then
not looking stupid.
and I was like, oh my god. Then I get to the coffee shop and I sit down in an area where I'm like, okay, I'm not in the line of fire of like, not making eye contact with everyone who walks into the door, and I will be able to see him walk in before he sees me.
Oh my
So like I can
gosh.
hide away here. But then as the time is ticking, I'm like, oh my gosh. But when he walks in, it's going to be such a long walk from where I'm sitting to the door. And do I walk up or is he going to walk towards me? And then that time of him walking towards me is going to be so awkward. When in reality, it's really not, but I'm overthinking it. And then another like big point of how my hypothetical mind works is like, oh my god, at the end of the date, he's gonna ask to walk me to my car, I'm sure, or I'm gonna walk him to his car, and then I'm gonna have to walk home, and he's gonna be like, where did you park? And I'm gonna be like, I walked. Because I'm a stupid idiot. And I'm like, I'm gonna say goodbye, and then he's gonna have to watch me walk away. So I set up my phone and I recorded a video of walking away so I could see what it would look like from his perspective of me walking away.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, I'm gonna kill myself. This is really bad. So we go for the coffee date, and it's fine, and none of the things that I thought were gonna be a big deal were a big deal at all. But then it's nearing the end of the day, and I'm like, now this is the awkward part that I've been worried about, where I'm gonna have to walk home. And when we say goodbye, I'm like, oh, I walked here. And he's like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, I have to now walk a different route home so that he doesn't drive past me as I'm walking home, because that's going to be awkward. And then what if he pulls over and rolls down his window and he's like, can I give you a ride? So I'm like, let me take the long way home so that I don't cross paths with him. And so I decide to turn down a dark street that has no street lights just to avoid seeing him, and just so he doesn't have to drive past me, because I just feel like a little stupid idiot. And turns out he drives past me still. And I see his car, and I'm like, oh my god, I nearly jumped into a bush. I was like, oh my god, I can't let him see me. Thankfully, it was a very dark street. But I'm like, why did
Imagining you jumping into a bush to avoid being seen by your date. Like,
So yeah, I was
Wild.
like, why did navigation take him down this random street? And I told him later on that I took that random street, and he said he was confused about the navigation and he took the wrong turn, and that wrong turn happened to be the street that I
That
was
you
trying to avoid him
chose.
down.
That
So it was very funny. But this is a long.
That's one example.
That's
of,
a
like,
long example of how my mind works.
there was like I remember a time in New York when you were meeting up with your friend and you were so worried
Oh my god.
about how you'd like make your first hey how are you
Is
and
this
you
who I think it's
yes
about? Yeah.
you first had to stop
Yes.
at like a store, right?
Oh
and so you're
my
at the checkout
gosh.
and you're like you were frantic about how your interaction was.
Yeah.
Like I swear I've never seen someone go through these scenarios like it was the most
I was
like tell this
okay. So with this situation, this was an old friend who was also an old fling, and we were meeting up
gosh.
for a dinner or lunch or whatnot back in New York, and he's someone who he's so great, and I've known him since we were 13 years old. Like he's someone who I'm very comfortable around the idea of, but yet because now it was past, we had been involved, I was overthinking everything, and so I was like, we were meeting on a street corner in the city. If you know how the street, like we were meeting on like Broadway and 34th maybe or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm just standing here like a stupid idiot on the corner. And what if he walks down and like from 2 blocks he sees me just standing there like, like
hey and then he has to walk 2 more blocks and
yeah.
you're like,
So I'm
"Hey,
like,
again?"
oh my god,
Like,
what am I gonna do? So I'm
when
like,
do you say
ah.
hi?
I have to hide in a CVS for the time
That's what it
being,
was.
so
Oh
that
my
he doesn't see me.
gosh.
Or wait, no? I think he went into a CVS.
I thought he went into a CVS.
That's what
and
it
then
was.
You went,
Oh yeah,
but
I was trying to hide. I was trying to find some sort of hide into, and then he texted me. He's like, "I'm in a CVS grabbing the water." I was like, "Okay, now I have to walk into a CVS, like, and I have to like find him in an aisle. That's so embarrassing." So I walk
Oh
in,
my
and he's at
gosh.
self checkout, and I'm like, "What do I do? Hug him from behind?" Like, and I think he saw me in the self checkout camera before he saw me in real life, and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And we hug, and then he's like, "Oh, like this feels awkward." One of us acknowledged it being kind of awkward. It was very funny, and then we ended up walking around, catching up, and then the goodbye was the most awkward goodbye I've ever had in my entire life,
Oh no.
because it was someone who like we were involved, but he had moved back to New York, and so I didn't see any point in entertaining it or like in being involved, because we live like it's just when you know
So
that your
far.
life is not intertwined with someone, and so it was like kind of like a date vibe like our whole day. And I just remember like, oh my god, is he gonna try to kiss me when we say goodbye? Like, I don't want to kiss him because he's so great, and it's like we've kissed before, but I don't want to kiss him because I don't see any future as of right now, so I don't want. And oh my gosh, and then so like we were saying goodbye, and he hugged me, and then he like pulled away, and I think he was like going to kiss me, and then I hugged him again, and then we kind of like hit like faces against each other, and oh my gosh, and then I was like, I'm gonna go get my train, and I like turned around and walked away, and my face was red for like 2 hours after that, because I was so embarrassed at how awkward
gosh.
the goodbye was. So this is just like, I guess this is kind of my episode.
This is Cosette's episode. I like as soon as we talked about doing this episode, I was like, Cosette just I mean, okay, another thing about Cosette is so funny. She had this idea of like, how awkward is it that we're getting ready for a date and they know that we're dressing up for
It's
the
so
date.
embarrassing.
And I'm like, how is that embarrassing? She's like, the fact that they know I'm dressing up for them, how it like, oh, it feels so awkward.
It's
I'm
so,
like,
I find that so cringy. It's like, if I'm meeting up to go out for drinks and like I'm wearing a dress and heels and like my makeup is done, like, I did that for you, and I think that's so cringy and
She's
embarrassing.
like,
I hate it.
it's cute.
I just,
That's normal.
I don't
It's so
know. I
funny.
get so cringed out. Like I give myself the ick. But yeah, that
It's so
is just
funny.
another thing that
Yeah.
I overthink. But I think that a lot of times this overthinking can negatively affect how you approach a date and how you're thinking on the date. And it's funny because the coffee story that I shared earlier, it turns out that the person that I was with was overthinking just as much, and now I know that. And he even said that he told me after the fact that at one point he was feeling like, so he also was drinking a cold brew, so he was feeling really shaky and overthinking and nervous. He like went into the bathroom and like splashed water in his face and was
That's
like
right.
looking at himself in the mirror like, what am I doing?
Oh my god.
And meanwhile, like I was outside like, I probably look so stupid right now. Like, and so I think that like reminding yourself that even if they don't, maybe it'll just help calm you a little bit, that they probably feel the exact same way.
Yeah.
Is really reassuring. But something that helps me a lot, if you do find yourself in
If
the
you're in
situation,
the Cosette camp, yeah.
if you find yourself in the same situation that you are constantly overthinking and finding all these hypothetical scenarios to worry about before a date, something that a friend told me once is just to imagine like you are going to meet up with a friend. Even if it's a first date, if it's a Hinge, like whatever, I just go into it being like, this is just a friend. I'm just going to meet a friend. I just have to exist in this place. But I think the pressure of it being romantic is what gets to me so much.
Yeah.
I sorry, I'm not asking questions this episode.
No, I'm fascinated by your stories
Yeah.
and how
Oh my
much you
gosh.
overthink. Because I, like, before, and I had a very small Hinge journey or, like, dating app journey. But I remember the 2 dates that I went on, I don't think I had any expectations or any kind of nerve. I was like, okay, like, we're going to try this one out and we're going to try the next one out. I guess I didn't think either of them were going to go anywhere. So the idea of just seeing what happens and hopefully we have fun was as much overthinking, or like, will I find parking? I think that's probably the extent of my overthinking.
I was gonna mention, you had mentioned on this one Hinge date that you went on that the first time you saw each other you were both in your cars.
Oh yeah, that
Oh,
was you're
yeah.
right.
That would make me want to kill myself.
So yeah, I didn't have that feeling.
Not really.
I just had a like. So I was there early, and so I was reading in my car, and he was like, I'm coming. I don't know if he was running late or just I got there super early, but he was coming, and then he pulled up on the side of me. He's like, okay, follow me. I know where to park. And so I was like, okay. And so we both drove to the area. He was like, okay, you park there. I'm gonna go ahead. And so I parked there. I stood by my car, got some things, and then when I saw he parked, like kind of like met in the middle and we're like, hey, like how are you? And like went to the beach. And then, even when I saw Mr. Right for the first time, we met at a bowling alley and I got there first. I don't know why I'm always getting these places first, but I got there first. I texted him saying like, oh, we need a reservation because it's an hour waiting for bowling. I can't
it's
believe
crazy.
it was crazy how many people were bowling. But he's like, oh, wow, dang, I didn't know. I'll be there like in 3 minutes. I'm like, okay. So then when I finally saw him come through, because also when you are on Hinge Date, that's, I guess, is again
You have
another,
to connect the face
I have to be like,
the in
oh
person.
yeah, okay, that's his face.
Is
like,
that the
yeah.
when freaking tennis player pulled into the coffee shop, I was like, is that him?
Yeah, you're like, I think that's him, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's a year-old photo. I'm not saying
Yeah.
there's a catfish, but you're like, he
Oh.
grew out his hair a little bit, or like, yeah, that's him. Okay,
Then-
yeah, like you do that, like kind of awkward, like
That's so
we're
funny.
like, oh, that is
Are we
both us.
both here for a Hinge date? Like,
That-
embarrassing.
Are you? Are you him? Are you her? Okay, I know. Almost. I almost did that last episode where I almost gave away who Bachelor was. I was like, Rachel and and Bachelor. I didn't spill his name, but yeah. So like outside that, and I think it was helpful. Also, I was at a counter, so when he was approaching after we waved, I turned back to the counter and kind of like
you're doing your own
did a
thing.
fake like I'm playing around at the counter and like, oh, you're here, hi. But when we were brainstorming hypotheticals, the one that I remember specifically is the only time I really felt I had to hyperfixate on this thing was one of the first dates I went on in LA. I just got finished watching the Ted Bundy show with Zac Efron.
Oh no.
And I remember being completely like, oh, I'm aware now. Like something in me clicked. I will see anyone who's going to do this to me. And so I texted my date saying, hey, I just watched the Ted Bundy show. If you're thinking, because we were going to do in and out, and then he was going to drive me up this mountain to see a view. And so I was like, if you're thinking of getting rid of my body or doing something with it.
You said that?
Oh
I
my
did.
goodness.
That's
I
hilarious.
did. Because I didn't want it to be in my mind. I wanted him to know that, like, I see you.
Yeah.
And he said, nope, that's not my plan. And
Well,
I
you
was
think
like,
a killer would tell
You're
you
like,
that it was
okay.
their plan? Ah,
Well,
man, you
now-
caught me. Now I
but
can't do
now
it.
there's a texting trail. Now,
true.
like, I feel like evidence out there.
true.
I've always told my parents, if I die, please at least find my body because there's going to be DNA on it. Like, even if I go down, there will be a trail, hopefully, whether it's in my journal, whether I've told friends.
Mhm.
I think, no, if someone, sorry, we're going into crime now, but if you feel your life is in danger, tell someone. Don't be cryptic and say, hey, here's a safety box if something happens to me. Tell someone why you think something's happening
This
to you.
is fueling our hypothetical scenarios.
So this is what I like, these are my hypotheticals before I date or go on dates, is like, am I gonna die? Even now in my relationship, I'm constantly telling Mr. Right, I'm like, you're probably gonna do this, right? Like, these are the two methods I feel like you would kill me by. And he's like, no one will ever find your body. And I was like, you're gonna need an alibi. He's like, nope, no one's gonna even question me. Like, they question everyone. And
Lexi's a crime
girly. We go down those paths. We just did last night. I was like, no, they're gonna find me. And he's like, you're so funny. And I'm like, what is happening?
Goodness.
Yeah,
this is reminding me
so
of the
those are my
hypotheticals.
hypotheticals.
That's why you share your location with your besties.
Yep,
Exactly.
my location shared with both of you, right? It's on. Okay, good.
Literally, when we've been, obviously we're off the market now, but Cosette, whenever like we go on dates, we always are like tracking each other. All right, where are you guys at? What are they doing?
So I want to ask you, Rachel, what are some things that you have found helpful to calm your nerves? Besides, we said location sharing is a big one. What are some things that, if you are feeling anxious before a first date or, any situation, like what are some things that you've noticed have helped calm your nerves?
Probably just going in with no expectations. I don't feel like I really overthink. I don't think at all.
This is a Cosette.
I don't think I really overthink.
She's like, I actually
dating.
don't have an answer to that question.
I don't know what you mean.
No.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I don't think I overthink situations. I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, go with the flow. If it goes good, it goes good. If it doesn't, then hopefully that's the only time that I'll see them. But in regards to first dates, I don't really think I overanalyze.
I think Cosette's done this a few times, but maybe getting ready with your friends. Like having a posse over and saying, like, I'm preparing for this first date. I've never met
It's so fun to get ready with friends.
It's fun. It gets your, I think, nerves flowing. You can do your hypotheticals. You can be like, this is crazy. I think Cosette's even had people getting ready with her, and then...
Oh my gosh, am I telling this story?
Are you?
I feel like it's been long enough.
I think...
Especially by the time
I wanted
that this
to leave
airs.
it open to...
That's hilarious.
Okay.
Wait, I wonder where you're going.
I will tell a abbreviated version of this story.
Yes!
This is horrifying.
This is a great story. This is where Cosette's mind goes. This is why I'm like, oh my gosh, she has so many stories about
Wait,
this.
are you talking about the judge?
Is that what's judge?
Wait a second.
I'm talking about...
Okay, cameras are not going to see this, I don't think.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm talking about that. I didn't know judge was... Okay. Oh, that makes sense.
Okay. So I was
makes sense.
I had planned, I was set up with this guy through a friend, and basically leading up to our first date, there was a lot of cancellation, a lot of iffiness. I almost didn't even go on it anymore because I feel like he just wasn't handling it very well. But I still went on it because my sister and one of my very close friends were like, you still had to go on it. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm going on it, you guys are getting ready with me. You're hyping me up. We're going to pregame. So we're getting ready. I feel so cute. Then we're taking some shots, like just getting ready.
Also,
music
that
blasting.
Helps. That helps
shots
the nerves.
Music is blasting. And then this guy pushes it even more, and he's like, I can do in like 2 hours after he originally said he was going to do. And I said, no, like now or never. So he rushed to I was annoyed at this point. I was like, there's so much cancellation.
It was
like,
crazy.
And so we decided, if this date goes horribly wrong because I'm already not getting great vibes, how can I make this fun? And so I worry my code name was too telling, but it's okay. So my sister and my very good friends decide to dress up as guys using clothes in my closet and sit right behind us the entire date.
Oh my God.
And observe the date. And then we had another friend join, and they were very loud the entire time, but they sat in, literally I was back to back with my sister the entire 2-hour date. And it was so hard for me to take this guy seriously while we were talking.
Also the date, not recognize them, but so sorry.
Oh, he was like,
guys
I'm sorry.
behind you.
The group of guys behind you is being really loud. I'm just laughing, and me little did he know it's literally my sister and best friend with facial hair painted on their face. and Rachel was on a date
I was about to say,
downtown
Rachel ran
Berkeley.
into one of these
At the
guys.
same time, and she saw one of them on FaceTime with another one of my friends, and she like walked past because she told Bachelor, "Oh, like Cosette's on a date right now at this place." So they walked past, and she was like, "That person looks a lot like
That guy looks like that
friends.
girl.
I was like, that person had a painted on mustache. And I was like, what? Did you see that?
Hilarious. But I feel like in that situation, I mean, I think I was already like pretty not satisfied with how the date was being handled. And so I decided to make it something fun for me. And then I ended up finding out some bad stuff about the guy that made me not want to go on any more dates, made me feel like unsafe. And
but you didn't really even have to use any kind of escape.
Yeah, I didn't even have to end up letting him down because he just kind of disappeared.
The effort
anyway.
wasn't really put in on his
the effort
side.
was kind of spotty. But
and so
that was so funny.
Yeah, that I can look back on that date so fondly because I think at least we made such a fun time out of it, and it's still something that.
So
makes
I think
me
that's
laugh so
helpful
hard.
when you have friends around you that you can go through the hypotheticals. They can kind of lift up your spirits and get you pumped for the outing. So I think that's a helpful
100%.
tip.
And on a more serious note about like how to actually overcome this and avoid the overthinking, I want to use a little tool or device that my therapist taught me. And it is if blank then what. And so she knows I will talk these hypothetical scenarios to death.
Yes.
And there are worst case scenarios, there are best case scenarios. And I'm thinking there was a period of time where I was nervous about running into an ex like in public and I didn't know how it would be handled. And every time I'd be like, but what if he's there and what if he comes up to me? She'd be like, then what? And then I'd be like, well, then we would have a conversation. Then what? Well, then I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, I think it's so helpful when you're overthinking so many situations. If this happens, if the date doesn't go well, then what? You don't have to ever see him again. And so just really, if you're going to think of the hypothetical scenario, think of the hypothetical solutions as well.
Yeah.
And just talk to freaking like death what would happen in that situation, and then you can come up with all of those hypothetical solutions.
I think that's even helpful for how I deal with anxiety in our relationship is asking myself that question more often. It's like, okay, if I'm worried about this happening, then what? Okay, then I find out and then we have a talk, or like, like everything that I work up in my
then you'll find happiness somewhere else.
Exactly.
And I think
I think that's really helpful, even just broader picture.
Yeah, broader picture. And a lot of times I would have that anxiety approaching conversations and relationships, like, oh my gosh, I saw him post with his ex and he didn't tell me. Then like, how am I supposed to approach that conversation? Okay, well, if he doesn't want to talk about it, then what? Then you tell him that you need to talk about it. Oh, if he's being shady, then what? Then you leave his ass. Like, that's
really helpful.
That's an exercise that really helped me.
I will say, like, when it comes to you, Cosette, I appreciate, like, I don't remember specifically, but I've brought situations up to you, and you always listen and you agree, but you also are devil's advocate. And it's like,
I'm famous for devil's advocate.
Devil's advocate.
She is.
It's like she like over analyzes in the best way because
she's like, I validate your feelings.
She
devil's advocate here.
She gives like all the solutions that could happen, and it like really centers us. And it's like, okay, this is an option, this is an option, this is an option, and this is an option. I only thought about this option, but she brought up these options, and they're all on the playing field.
Because I'm such an overthinker, I thought about every option.
I know.
But it also helps like guide us. It's like, oh, actually, I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, it's very helpful because whenever, like, if Rachel talks about something, I'm like, Rachel, I've been there. My mind works this way. And it's really helpful to have some kind of anchor from Cosette that's like, I've also thought about it 20,000 different times, and this.
I've thought about it in a far more detailed way than you've ever thought about it. I can promise you that.
And she's able to like give that kind of insight or like differing opinion and thought.
I feel like what's great about all three of us is like if one of us agrees, there's always one that has more to say. So it's not just like, oh, this happened. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're not an echo chamber. I feel like we're not just like here to parrot each other.
Give each other our opinions on, the situation going on. And what's great about us is like we take each other's opinions very gracefully.
Yeah, 100%.
So I feel like, I mean, just to talk about overthinking and building up those what is it? Hypotheticals?
Hypotheticals.
Why was that? I was like, what is that word? Having a group I know we talked about getting ready with friends, but having a group that you can either jump on a call with or, take to whatever form you're communicating and be like, okay, I'm going through some nerves right now. I'm freaking out. Can we run through some things? And that's helped too. And just how we're able to bring ourselves back. Like, if you can, I think that's also a really helpful way because it's helped me
100%.
a lot.
Yeah. And just as a final story, this reminds me of a situation that we very recently went through where I was having a really hard time sleeping because I was really anxious over all these things. I was overthinking, and I learned this piece of information that was very irrelevant, but I was just harping on it. And this is why it's so important to have a counsel. And I hopped into our counsel group chat, our Snapchat group, and I just spoke and I vented and I talked about why it was making me so anxious and why I'm anxious about it, what I think the hypotheticals that are associated with that are. And first of all, just saying it and then journaling helped me so much. The next morning I felt so much better. But then also hearing you girls just actually you haven't gotten to that in the Snapchat.
I'm a week behind.
So you're behind. But
I got time.
Lexi not only responded but texted me separately and was like, I'm so sorry I didn't get on that faster. Like, how are you feeling now? Let's talk it through. And it's just so important to have the different perspectives in your group chat that can calm you down in these moments, but then also, as you said, like, play devil's advocate. I think it's important to provide that different perspective. That's why 3 is such a perfect number.
It is.
I think it is.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
No, that it's always helpful because, I mean, not only is it very reliable when I see our Snap group, I'm like, okay, we're going through something always. That is the consistency in this group. But we're also, I think, for the most part, readily available to answer each other and provide those perspectives and work through those very, what's the word again?
Hypothetical situations.
I keep saying hyper. Like maybe it's
Well,
like
we're
hyperactive
We're hyper.
imaginations.
Yeah.
Like we fixate on a lot of different things, and so when we jump into the group, we can talk about that, and we have like almost a space to say all those outrageous ideas. And we're like, hey, I know I shouldn't be freaking out about this, but I am, and so can I talk about it? And it's helpful when you're not just running through your own mind, because that's when it gets really
when
down.
you're sitting with it with yourself and just letting your mind wander. That's the worst.
Yep.
And I feel like it's great
Dangerous.
because we could hop on, Snapchat. We love Snapchat. We could hop on and pour our hearts out and our feelings. And it's like, okay, we'll get to it when we get to it, and we could chat about it. Or if we're really serious, we're like, hey, we just dropped tea in the Snapchat.
We will like give each
the
other.
girls will be like, okay,
I'm on it. I'm on duty.
I'm
clocked
on it,
in.
yeah.
Yes, that's that clocked in. Okay, I
Clocked
just
in.
listened and responded. Do you need
Do you need any other support? But anyway, I think that we have provided a lot of good tips that even just for myself, like good reminders and refreshers.
Good reminders for me too.
Yeah, on how to kind of get out of this toxic headspace that we get in.
But I'm still not done with all your stories yet. So please, when they keep happening, share them with us,
because I will never fully get
yes.
away from the hypothetical scenarios, but I think that having these constant reminders helps cool me down in the moment. But I also think that there's a lot of comedy to hypothetical moments. And so
we didn't even get
is.
into like all the great conversations that happen from your hypotheticals too. Like, I think a lot of the times when you bring it up, you're like, what if? Or and it leads into a really cool conversation.
Really fast.
Yeah.
We're over time. But I didn't finish the whole thing about how I was feeling anxious and I was thinking about all these hypotheticals. And then I came to the person who I was having those hypothetical worries about. And
what an idea.
I was like, I know, communication?
What?
But I was like, I've been feeling really anxious. And he was like, why? And I was like, these are all the thoughts going on in my head. And he was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, let's just talk about it. And it was as easy as talking about it. So a lot of times we build up all of this, unnecessary stress and anxiety when it can be solved so simply and just be talked out, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's a friendship, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just
it's so true.
Getting it off your chest.
As soon as you say it, you're like, oh, that was easy.
That was not as big of a deal as I could have avoided so much stress for so much longer if I would have just talked about it sooner. So don't bottle your feelings
Lesson
up.
learned.
Yeah.
Yet again.
Don't battle yourself or your mind.
Yeah.
Like, speak it out.
Exactly.
Did you say bottle yourself?
Don't battle
yourself.
Don't
bottle yourself
mind.
and don't bottle up your mind.
Yeah.
Same thing, yeah.
So that's the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. And let us know if you have any hypothetical scenarios that are running wild in your minds.
Ooh.
You did a great job, Cosette.
Thank you. This is my podcast now.
Signing off. Over. Her mind has taken over.
Signing off. This is Cosette,
Lexi,
and Rachel.
Bye.